You've heard it 1,000 times. Discipline is the key to success. It's the mantra plastered across self-help books, the advice echoed by successful people, and the standard we hold ourselves to when nothing seems to work. And yet, despite our best efforts, discipline often feels like an uphill climb. Why does it feel so hard, so unnatural, to stick to the grind? Why does the promise of progress often feel weighed down by frustration and burnout? The truth is, discipline alone isn't the magical solution it's made out to be. It's a tool, yes, a powerful one, but one that's inherently designed to fight against our instincts. At its core, discipline asks us to push through discomfort, to silence the voice inside that begs for rest, distraction, or an easier way. It demands we defy the very wiring of our brains, which evolved not for constant productivity, but for survival. Think about it. Our ancestors lived in a world of scarcity. Their brains adapted to seek the most reward for the least effort, a mechanism that kept them alive when food was sparse and energy needed to be conserved. This same programming lives within us today. It's why we procrastinate, why we crave comfort, and why we resist the grind, even when we know it might lead to something better. Discipline then becomes a battle, not just against external obstacles, but against our very nature. And battles are exhausting. Maybe you've felt it, the endless cycle of trying, failing, and starting over. The motivational videos tell you to just keep going. But what they don't tell you is that willpower has limits. It's like a muscle that fatigues over time, especially when it's used to force yourself down a path that doesn't feel natural. You can push and push, but eventually exhaustion takes over. Here's where the real struggle lies. We think the problem is us. We tell ourselves we're lazy, undisciplined, or not cut out for success. We compare ourselves to those who seem to thrive on the grind and wonder what's wrong with us. But what if the issue isn't a lack of discipline at all? What if the problem is the path we've chosen? Imagine trying to run a race in shoes that don't fit, blisters forming with every step, pain radiating up your legs. You could keep going, gritting your teeth and forcing yourself to finish. Or you could stop, switch to a pair that feels like they were made for you, and suddenly, running doesn't feel like torture anymore. The effort is still there, but it no longer feels like a fight. Discipline works the same way. When you're on a path that aligns with your natural strengths, discipline isn't a constant battle. It becomes a quiet companion, a gentle nudge instead of a harsh whip. The struggle fades, not because you're working less, but because you're working in a way that feels right. This isn't about taking the easy way out, it's about choosing the way that works for you. It's about listening to the whispers of your talents and instincts, rather than drowning them out with the noise of what the world tells you to do. When you align your efforts with your natural rhythm, discipline transforms from a battle into a dance. A flow that feels less like struggle and more like harmony. So if discipline feels like a fight, ask yourself this: are you on the right path, or are you trying to force yourself into a mold that doesn't fit? Because the secret isn't to fight harder, it's to find the shoes that let you run free. There's a quiet voice within you, a gentle whisper you may have overlooked. It doesn't shout or demand your attention, but it's always been there, patiently waiting for you to listen. It speaks of your essence, the parts of you that come alive effortlessly, the things you do without even trying. That voice is your talent, a gift not given to you by chance, but woven into the very fabric of who you are. In a world that glorifies hard work and hustle, talent is often dismissed as a luxury, a spark that only a lucky few possess. But the truth is, we all have it. Every single one of us carries within us a set of natural inclinations, a unique combination of strengths that shape how we see and interact with the world. The problem isn't that talent is rare. The problem is that we rarely take the time to recognize it. We're taught to follow the rules of success as if they're carved in stone. Be disciplined, work harder, grind through the pain. And while those virtues have their place, they often drown out in nature's whisper. They push us to focus on what we lack instead of what we have. We spend years trying to fix our weaknesses, pouring endless energy into paths that don't feel quite right, all while our strengths sit quietly in the shadows, waiting for their moment to shine. But what if, instead of fighting against ourselves, we leaned into what comes naturally? Think back to your childhood. What made you feel alive back then? Were you the curious one, always asking questions and seeking answers? The creative one, sketching ideas on scraps of paper? Or maybe the problem solver, finding ways to make sense of chaos? Those aren't just hobbies or quirks. They're clues. They're the breadcrumbs that lead you to your innate gifts. Here's the magic of talent. When you embrace it, work doesn't feel like work. Effort feels lighter and progress comes quicker. You're not forcing yourself into someone else's mold. You're stepping into a version of yourself that already exists. And when you're in that space, something extraordinary happens. What once felt like struggle transforms into flow. Imagine this. You're swimming in a river. If you fight the current, you'll exhaust yourself trying to move forward. But if you turn and swim with the flow, the water carries you effortlessly. That's what aligning with your talents feels like. The effort is still there, but it's in harmony with the rhythm of who you are. Your talents don't have to be grand to be powerful. Maybe you have a knack for connecting with people, for seeing details others miss, or for staying calm in chaos. Even traits often seen as flaws, like being stubborn, anxious, or overly meticulous, can become strengths when channeled the right way. The key is to stop ignoring nature's whisper and start paying attention. So, how do you uncover your talents? Start by listening. Notice the tasks that energize you instead of draining you. Reflect on what people compliment you for or seek your advice on. Pay attention to the things you lose yourself in, the moments when time seems to disappear. These aren't coincidences. They're signposts guiding you to your unique gifts. When you discover and embrace the power of your talents, the world opens up in ways you never imagined. Life no longer feels like a constant push against resistance. Instead, it becomes a dance, a rhythm that feels intuitive and right. You stop asking, "What do I have to do to succeed?" and start asking, "How can I let my strengths shine?" There's a rare and beautiful moment in life when time seems to stand still. You're fully immersed, completely alive, and yet strangely calm. The work flows effortlessly from your hands, your mind sharp and focused, yet unburdened by strain. This is the flow state, a place where effort meets ease, where struggle dissolves and your true potential emerges. But let's start here. How often do you feel like this? Most of us don't live in flow. Instead, we trudge through tasks, feeling disconnected, overwhelmed, or drained. We believe that hard work is supposed to feel hard, that progress is something you claw your way toward. But flow challenges that idea. It whispers, what if the best work happens when you stop fighting and start aligning? Flow isn't just a myth reserved for artists, athletes, or genius inventors. It's a state of being available to all of us. It's that moment when you lose yourself in what you're doing, when the barriers between you and your work fade away. It's not about working less, it's about working differently, tapping into a rhythm that feels so natural it becomes second nature. But how do you get there? Flow begins at the intersection of challenge and skill. Picture a tightrope. Too much challenge, and it feels impossible. You wobble, stumble, and fall. Too little challenge, and you lose interest, your mind wandering to anything but the task at hand. Flow exists in the delicate balance, where the task stretches your abilities just enough to keep you engaged, but not so much that it overwhelms you. When you're in flow, something extraordinary happens in your brain. The chatter of self-doubt quiets. The part of you that constantly questions, am I doing this right? What if I fail? Takes a back seat. Instead, you operate on instinct, your focus razor sharp, and your actions seamless. It feels almost magical, but it's not magic, it's science. It's your brain firing on all cylinders, completely attuned to the moment. And here's the most important thing. Flow happens more often when you're working with your natural strengths. Think about it. If you're forcing yourself into tasks that feel unnatural, flow is nearly impossible. You'll spend more energy fighting your instincts than doing the work itself. But when you align with your talents, those abilities that feel like second nature, flow becomes a regular visitor. Imagine a musician lost in their melody, their fingers moving instinctively over the strings, or a designer sketching ideas, so immersed in their creation that hours pass unnoticed. These moments of flow aren't random. They're the result of alignment, when what you do matches who you are. But flow doesn't just create ease, it creates excellence. When you're in flow, you perform at your best, your creativity surges, and your productivity skyrockets. It's not about avoiding hard work, it's about making hard work feel effortless. It's about finding the joy in the process, not just chasing the end result. So, how do you invite flow into your life? Start by identifying what tasks energize you rather than deplete you. Lean into your strengths and seek out challenges that excite rather than intimidate. And most importantly, create space for deep focus. Flow doesn't thrive in distraction. It needs your full attention, your willingness to be fully present in the moment. When effort meets ease, something remarkable happens. You stop feeling like you're pushing uphill and start gliding toward your goals. Flow isn't just a state, it's a way of living, a way of working that feels as natural as breathing. Find your flow, and you'll find a version of yourself you never knew existed. A version where work becomes art, effort becomes joy, and time fades away. We've been told the same story for as long as we can remember. If you want to succeed, you have to grind, push through the pain, fight against your weaknesses, and outwork everyone else. It's the badge of honor society glorifies: struggle, strain, and sacrifice. But what if this narrative isn't the only path? What if success doesn't have to be a battlefield, but instead a garden we cultivate by leaning into our strengths? It's time to rewrite the rules. Strength over strain. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? For so long, we've equated success with suffering, believing that the harder the climb, the greater the reward. But here's a truth that few acknowledge. Not all climbs are meant for you. Some paths were never yours to take, and forcing yourself up a mountain that doesn't align with your abilities will leave you exhausted, disheartened, and stuck at the base. The old rules tell us to fix our weaknesses. If you're not great at something, work harder until you are. It sounds noble, but here's the problem. Pouring your energy into areas that don't naturally align with your talents is like trying to row upstream in a storm. You might make progress, but it's slow, frustrating, and unsustainable. Meanwhile, the currents of your strengths, those natural inclinations that make you unique, go unnoticed, untapped, wasted. So, what does it mean to choose strength over strain? It means stepping back and asking yourself, what am I already good at? What feels intuitive, almost effortless? These aren't small questions, they're revolutionary. Consider this. When you focus on your strengths, something incredible happens. Progress feels lighter, faster, even joyful. You're not forcing yourself to adapt to an ill-fitting mold. You're growing into the person you were always meant to be. But make no mistake, choosing strength over strain isn't about avoiding hard work. It's about channeling your effort into places where it can flourish. It's about creating momentum instead of resistance. Take a look at the people who inspire you. Chances are, they're not successful because they fought against their nature, but because they embraced it. Picture an artist who struggles with numbers but thrives in creativity. If they spend their days trying to master spreadsheets, they might survive, but they'll never shine. Now, imagine that same artist pouring their energy into their craft, creating beauty that moves the world. That's the difference between strain and strength. One depletes you, the other propels you. The beautiful thing about strengths is that they're not static, they grow. When you invest in what you're naturally good at, you create a cycle of improvement. Success breeds confidence, Confidence breeds effort, and effort leads to mastery. Rewriting the rules doesn't mean you ignore your weaknesses entirely. It means you stop letting them define you. It's about finding ways to work around them, delegate them, or turn them into opportunities for collaboration. Your weaknesses don't have to be roadblocks. They can be stepping stones that lead you back to your strengths. Life isn't a test where you're graded on every subject. You don't have to master everything to succeed. Instead, you get to choose the areas where you excel, the challenges that excite you, the goals that align with who you are. When you stop chasing perfection and start leaning into your natural gifts, you'll find a path that feels less like a struggle and more like home. The rules society gives us aren't set in stone. They're guidelines, and you have the power to rewrite them. So, choose strength over strain. Swim with the current instead of against it. Grow into your potential instead of grinding yourself down. And in doing so, you'll discover something extraordinary. Success doesn't have to be a fight. Sometimes it's simply about choosing the right dance partner. Imagine waking up each day to a life that feels perfectly tailored to you. A life where every action, every decision, every moment feels like it belongs. This is not a fantasy or a utopia. It's the life you design when you align with who you truly are. We spend so much time living by rules we didn't write, chasing goals we didn't choose, and following paths that were never meant for us. We're told that success is a specific formula, a mix of long hours, rigid discipline, and constant sacrifice. But what if the secret to thriving wasn't about following someone else's blueprint? What if it was about designing your own? To thrive in alignment with yourself means rejecting the one-size-fits-all approach to life. It means stepping back from the noise and asking the simplest yet most profound question. Who am I? Not who the world expects you to be, not who you've been trying to become, but the person you are at your core, the person who feels alive when certain tasks ignite your passion or when specific environments allow you to shine. When you design a life that aligns with your strengths, values, and natural rhythm, everything changes. Suddenly, effort feels lighter, and joy finds its way into your daily routine. The tasks that once felt like a chore become an extension of who you are. But how do you begin? It starts with self-awareness. Take time to notice what energizes you versus what drains you. Pay attention to the moments when you lose track of time because you're so immersed in what you're doing. These are the breadcrumbs that lead you to alignment. For example, someone with a natural gift for storytelling might find joy in writing, speaking, or even connecting people through shared narratives. For them, a life in alignment could mean choosing work that allows them to create, communicate, and inspire. On the other hand, someone with an analytical mind might thrive in solving complex problems, building systems, or delving into research. Their design would look entirely different, but equally fulfilling. This process isn't just about work, it's about your whole life. What kind of relationships make you feel seen and supported? What environments bring you peace? What kind of pace allows you to thrive? Designing a life in alignment means looking at every aspect and asking yourself, does this feel right for me? Sometimes alignment means making tough choices. It might mean letting go of paths that once seemed promising but no longer feel authentic. It might mean disappointing others who expect you to be someone you're not. But the trade-off is worth it because what you gain is far greater. A life that feels true, whole, and deeply satisfying. When you live in alignment with yourself, you stop competing with others because you're no longer playing their game. You create your own rules, your own metrics for success. It's not about keeping up. It's about staying rooted in your purpose and moving forward in your way. Designing your life isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about building a foundation that reflects who you are and gives you room to grow. When you thrive in alignment, you'll find that even the challenges become opportunities because they're part of a journey you've chosen. So, step back from the noise, and take a long, honest look at your life. What parts of it feel like they belong? What parts feel out of place? And most importantly, what would your life look like if you designed it with your true self in mind? The life you design is waiting for you, not one dictated by expectations or shaped by obligation, but one crafted by your hands, guided by your heart, and aligned with your soul.